It's September, and you know what that means? The NHL is almost back. Pre-season begins later this month, and I am very excited to have hockey back in my life because life is not the same without hockey. So for today's video, I thought it would be fun to do my NHL predictions ahead of the 2025-26 season. As I just said, pre-season hasn't even begun yet, so these are definitely very early predictions, but I did do a video like this last year, and it's a lot of fun to make, it's a lot of fun to do, and it's a lot of fun to read what everyone else thinks in the comment section as well. So feel free to disagree with me completely. Leave your predictions down in the comments below because I want to hear them. I will say my predictions last year were okay. They weren't fantastic by any means. I mean, I definitely got, you know, the Stanley Cup finalists in the top category, and I definitely got the lottery pick teams in the bottom tier, but aside from that, there were definitely some in the wrong places, and I had some bad takes on who was going to do well last year. So let's see if this year we can do any better, and let's predict what's going to happen in the 25-26 NHL season. Just quick before we get started, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm Victoria and I talk everything hockey and the Toronto Maple Leafs from across the pond in Scotland, so make sure to hit that subscribe button and also like this video if you did enjoy it, and as I said, leave your predictions down in the comments below. So first things first, we need to name the tiers, of course, and the S tier is going to be Stanley Cup contenders. Then the A tier we will have as this could be the year. So they will probably make playoffs but might not go too deep on a run. B category is going to be wild card. Could go either way, don't know what these teams are going to do, but they're going to be kind of on the verge, probably a wild card team. The C category is going to be maybe next year, teams that I feel like are really close to being good, but they're not quite there yet. And then finally we're going to have draft lottery. Speaks for itself, the teams that are not even going to be in contention for the playoffs this year, they're going to get a good draft pick. You know the score. And the first team is the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously they were very unlucky in the playoffs being matched up against Dallas, who were just an absolute powerhouse. They were plagued with a lot of injuries at the start of last season, so they'll probably be a better team to start off this season compared to last, because they were definitely sort of held back by those injuries. But they have McKinnon, they have Makar, there's only one place they're going, and it's Stanley Cup contenders. Which I know sounds odd for a team that went out in the first round, but I think they only went out because it was Dallas. I think if they'd been matched up against someone different, they would have gone further, and yeah, I think Colorado just have a really good team. They're so solid. You have to put them in Stanley Cup contenders. You can't have the star players that they have and not have them in contention. Next up are the Chicago Blackhawks. Obviously been in a rebuild phase for a while now. They're a young team. I can't think of any major additions or changes that they've made this off-season, and so they're not going to be in any kind of contending spot at all, I don't think, and I'm going to put them in draft lottery because even though I think their future is bright, they're not there yet. The Columbus Blue Jackets. Okay, so they added Miles Wood and Charlie Coyle, so they're definitely a deeper team than before. They were also still a potential playoff team until very, very late in the season, so I'm not too sure where to put them, to be honest. I don't think that it's going to be their year. I'm hesitating between maybe next year and wild card. I'm going to stick with maybe next year. Hard to choose between those two, but I don't see Columbus doing too much. The St. Louis Blues. Okay, I feel like they've had quite a low-key off-season from what I can think off the top of my head. If I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. I would love to know every single thing about every single NHL team, but I have a job. Otherwise I would. I really would. I feel like they're just a very middle of the pack kind of team, and I feel like they're maybe missing a little something still. Definitely wild card or maybe next year. Very similar to Columbus in my mind somehow. You know what, I'm going to put them in wild card. I don't know, I feel like there could be potentially something there, so we'll see. The Boston Bruins. Okay, so Boston were one of my biggest mistakes in my prediction video last year because I had them in cup contender. They weren't even remotely close to that. Last season was a huge step backwards for Boston, obviously, compared to what they were in years previously. The record was really bad, they missed playoffs, just a disastrous year for Boston, and the Atlantic Division is good and it's only set to continue to get better, making it harder for Boston to get back in the running. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Is draft lottery too harsh? It's just, I don't feel like next year they would do it either, to be honest. Like, I'm just... I don't know, I'm kind of stuck between whether they should be here or here. I'll put maybe next year because I don't think they're quite as bad as teams like Chicago, but they're definitely borderline. Definitely borderline. I just don't feel like they're going to do it next year though. I feel like I needed like another category in between those two. The Montreal Canadiens, who of course made a surprise playoff appearance last season. They've signed Noah Dobson, which I think is a really great addition for them. Good two-way defenseman. I think that's a great pickup. They are still a rebuild team, but they have shown that they can do surprising things. I just feel like the Atlantic is so difficult to do well in because it's so competitive and there's a lot of good teams in there. So I'm going to go either wild card or maybe next year, because I know they did make it into the playoffs. I think I'll put them in maybe next year. I know that they did manage to make it to the playoffs last year, but I'm not too sure. The Atlantic is going to be tight, I think. The Vancouver Canucks obviously had a devastating end to their season last year. I really thought they would do a lot better than they did, and I thought they were definitely a playoff team for at least the first round, and obviously they didn't make it there, so bad end to the season last year for them. They've got a new coach, they traded for Evander Kane. I don't think they're guaranteed a playoff spot based off of last year's ending, but their team should be good enough that they're in the running for it, so I'm going to put them in wildcard. I feel like that's fair. The Washington Capitals. I feel like it's likely that Ovechkin is still not done. Obviously, it was a milestone season for him as an individual, but also for just the team as a whole, really, because of it. They're a very good team. For some reason, I don't want to put them in Stanley Cup contenders just because I feel like there's just other teams that are better. But they're definitely, and this could be the year. Definitely. Very solid team. So obviously they lost in 5 games in the second round to the Canes in the playoffs, which was surprising to me. I thought they would have put up more of a fight than losing it in 5. Yeah, I'll put them in this could be the year. I'm happy with them there. The New Jersey Devils. Obviously last season was also disappointing for them. I feel like the team is very similar as to last season. Of course there is the potential to return to their former glory. With players like Jack Hughes on the team, it's hard to imagine that they won't be potentially in the running if the team stays healthy. I'm going to go for this could be the year. I think it could be. I also do really rate Sheldon Keefe as a coach a lot. Obviously, he was the Leafs coach before and I really liked having Keefe. I really don't have anything bad to say about him, to be honest. I'm glad he's not the Leafs coach anymore because it was time to move on. But I think that ultimately he does a great job and I think New Jersey are in safe hands with him. The Anaheim Ducks, another rebuild team who are just not there yet. I think, you know, they've got a lot of young guys that in time will do really well for them, but I don't think they're close to being good again. Not in the next year or two. That Boston one, I'm still debating whether should be down in the draft lottery or not. Boston's very much on the verge between these two. The Calgary Flames. It feels like there's a lot of missing pieces still from this team. It's not a complete lost cause. Jonathan Huberdeau, I think he's a fantastic player who brings a lot to the table. But I do think they have roster deficiencies which will hold them back, and so I'm going to go maybe next year. I feel like they still have some more to add before they're quite in contention. The Philadelphia Flyers, despite trading for Trevor Zegras, I still feel like they are, once again, a team that are not even remotely close. And I think they're going to be one of the lowest down teams. So, draft lottery, I'm afraid. The Vegas Golden Knights. Well, as a Leafs fan, I'm sick of reading about this team. Obviously, Vegas are going to Stanley Cup contenders. They were already a really great competitive team, but of course, adding Mitch Marner. If Mitch Marner can show up in the playoffs in a way that he never did for Toronto, then, you know, they could be in for something good there. But we're not talking about that. Because I have read more about Mitch Marner since he's left Toronto than when he was actually there. And I'm sick of reading about it because I'm a Leafs fan and I want to focus on the players that we actually have. So anyway, moving on. Vegas are Stanley Cup contenders, obviously. The Carolina Hurricanes, very, very strong team. I think they are like a really, really competitive side. They went deep into the playoffs, they proved their worth in the postseason. Definitely could see them going on a cup run and potentially lifting Lord Stanley at the end. I think they're a great team, they're really solid. Yeah, they play a very smart kind of hockey, and I think they're able to just shut down a lot of teams, and I think that can really take you far when it comes to the postseason. I feel like they're a team that are built for the playoffs somehow, so I could definitely see them potentially lifting the Stanley Cup this year. The New York Islanders, they are slowly progressing into a better team as time goes on, but I don't feel like the team as it is solid enough to do well this year. Barzal and Horvat were obviously their most important connection, but I know that Barzal obviously had an injury which kind of threw off the chemistry and the dynamics of the team a little bit, and I know they had like some issues, but I'm gonna go maybe next year because I feel like they're not quite draft lottery level. They're getting better as the seasons go on, I think. The Winnipeg Jets, after an outstanding regular season record, I really, really thought that they were going to be in the Stanley Cup final. However, I don't think that you go from having a record like that to not being a competitor. So again, they might be up in here, or maybe they should be here, actually. I feel like I'm putting too many in this top category. But no, I do think they could be potentially cup contenders, although they were not as good in the postseason as I anticipated they would be based on their regular season performance. But still, you don't get a record like that without being a competitive team. The LA Kings. I think LA are definitely a team who can compete well within their own division. I think they'll do really well in the Pacific. Obviously, they added Corey Perry. Obviously not in his prime anymore, but definitely a veteran that brings experience to the table. I think, you know what, is that a bold take to say this could be the year? Is that bold? I don't know. There's something about LA that I'm like, there's something there. So they're either a wild card or this could be the year, but we'll give them the benefit of the doubt and we'll put them up to second top. The Seattle Kraken. This team are playing the long game. They are patiently building this roster over time. They are carefully curating it, and I think in the long run it's going to pay off, and I think they're going to do well in the long term, but they're not there yet. I don't think, I just don't think the roster's strong enough yet to be competitive, so I'm going to go maybe next year. But I do love the long game that they're playing, and I think it will pay off for them. The Tampa Bay Lightning, despite the fact that I feel like they definitely peaked a few years back when they won a couple of cups, they still maintain a really good team and a solid level of hockey. I can see them being contenders for at least the division. I don't quite know if I believe that they're like a team built for the postseason, so I'm going to go this could be the year. I just think they are overall a really good team, and I think they could potentially go for the division title, although we'll speak about Florida in a minute. But yeah, I think this could be the year for them. They remain annoyingly at a good level. They haven't gone in that cyclical period of rebuilding or anything after winning the cup, so yeah. And speaking of the Atlantic Division, how about my Toronto Maple Leafs? Look, this is my YouTube channel. I am a die-hard Leafs fan, and I will always have faith in them. As long as they are a competitive team, I'm going to believe they're Stanley Cup contenders. And yes, I know that is bias. I am well aware of the bias. I own up to the bias, I'm accountable for it. But this is my season prediction, and so I'm going to do it nonetheless. I don't care that Mitch Marner is gone, I don't think they're a worse team. Maybe I'll be eating my words halfway through the season, who knows, but I truly believe that this team can still do it. I'm still a little heartbroken over the second round loss. I don't think I'll ever recover from crying in Scotiabank at that Game 7. But I believe they can do it, and as a die-hard fan, you kind of got to believe. So definitely bias, I know. I won't go too deep into my thoughts because if you get me talking about the Leafs, we could be here all day. And I think I will do a separate video on the Leafs leading into the season, like my predictions about the Leafs individually going into the season, so I won't talk about them any longer, otherwise we'll be here all day. The Edmonton Oilers, I really thought they were going to end the drought of a Canadian team winning the Stanley Cup. I honestly thought they were going to be the team to do it. They were so close, and they need to get it done before McDavid potentially leaves. I know that he's kind of saying he's going to sign, but he's taking his time about it, and I don't know, could Connor McDavid be on the move potentially? Because if so, there's a level of urgency that Edmonton have to win the cup this year, and I do think they will be contenders. I do. I know there's a lot up in this top category and I'm realising there's maybe too many, but I hope you guys don't mind. Definitely Stanley Cup contenders. I really thought they were going to do it last year, to be honest. And next up are the Florida Panthers. You can imagine how I feel about the Florida Panthers as a Leafs fan. I don't even think it needs to be debated where they're going. They're the last team on here that'll be in this top Stanley Cup contenders tier, but they absolutely are. I think it's undeniable. I think it's undeniable that Florida might potentially go for the three-peat. They managed to keep, they're an unstoppable force. They managed to retain their players really well as well, which is definitely an advantage. And as much as I don't want to see them win the cup again, I do think it is a possibility, and so yeah, they have to go up there. The Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't feel like Pittsburgh are going to do too much, if I'm honest. I feel like their team has aged a bit and I feel like they're definitely way past the prime that they once had. I think it's mean putting them down here because I feel like they're not that bad. I guess I'll put them in maybe next year. I'm not sure they're quite draft lottery level, but do I think they're going to like do anything more? No, so I think they have to stay down there. The Nashville Predators. Okay, apart from Chicago, I don't see them finishing above the bottom of the division, unfortunately. They don't have a particularly strong team at the moment. I don't think they'll be competitive. And I'm going to put them in draft lottery. I honestly think they're going to finish at the bottom of their division. Apart from Chicago, I think Chicago will be lower. Yeah. Sorry, Nashville. The New York Rangers. A really good team, but struggled making the playoffs last year. Feel like they could go either way, and I feel like they're the definition of, to me anyway, a wildcard team. Definitely a wildcard team. I feel like they're well suited to that section. The Detroit Red Wings. Okay, I can see where this team is going, but as I keep saying, the Atlantic I think is going to be really good this year. I'm not trying to say that the other divisions aren't going to be, but I feel like I know the Atlantic division a lot better, obviously, and I don't see them finishing high up in the division, and I don't see them making a playoff spot, I don't think. But they're not like a dreadful team overall. I think I'll go maybe next year. The Buffalo Sabres. So they've added on offense and defense. They've kind of rounded out their team a little bit better, I think. I think they're definitely an improved team. But they did lose the likes of JJ Peterka, which I think is quite a big loss for them. I feel like they're going to be an okay team, but maybe not a 100-point sort of team. I'm going to put them in the wild card. I could see them going other way just depending on how the season plays out and depending on whether they stay healthy. So I think wild card is a fair spot for them to be in. The Ottawa Senators. Battle of Ontario again, anyone? Ottawa have got a good team, a young team. I think it was really their inexperience that cost them the playoffs in the first round. They lacked a bit of discipline and you could just sort of see that there was an inexperience there among some of their players. But obviously with each year that passes, this will only improve and their players will get more experience in those sort of scenarios. So I honestly think we could see Ottawa in the playoffs again this year. I really do think so. I strongly believe that that is a possibility. So I'm going to put this could be the year. I don't think they are at the stage where they could go on a deep cup run, but I do think they will make playoffs. I really do. The San Jose Sharks, obviously, I mean, I don't need to say too much, do I? They're obviously going in draft lottery. They're another rebuild team, probably going to finish somewhere around the bottom of the Pacific. So as much as I love their branding, draft lottery. The Dallas Stars. Oh, now I said that I wasn't going to put any more in Stanley Cup contenders. But how can I leave Dallas out of the running for that? Because they're an absolute powerhouse. They're a force to be reckoned with. That Dallas versus Colorado first round matchup was fantastic, and that's something which I would look forward to seeing in the regular season too. I think those two will be the two battling it out for division title. Well, I'm sorry I lied, because Dallas are going in the top Stanley Cup contender spot. So I mean, I guess these are my top teams for this season. I feel like they're all sort of reasonable. The Leafs is obviously a little bit biased, and Winnipeg, I was nearly putting this could be the year, but I'll be generous. I'll be generous this year and I'll give more teams the benefit of the doubt. So the Utah Mammoth are next. They actually added a lot onto their roster this off-season. They added JJ Peterka, that I just talked about. They also added veterans like Brandon Tanev. I think there's the chance for Utah to just sneakily maybe get into a wildcard spot without anyone really paying too much attention. I do think that's a possibility. I think their roster is a little bit underrated. And even though I don't think they are built for the postseason yet at all, I could definitely see them in a wildcard spot. And finally we have the Minnesota Wild. I think they'll definitely be competitive within their own division. Of course, Minnesota were looking to sign a lot of big names this offseason who instead re-signed with their own teams, so I don't think Minnesota have leveled up in the way that I think a lot of people were expecting, or the way that they were hoping to. Kaprizov missed a lot of games with a lower body injury, and I feel like that was a big loss to them, whereas him coming back healthy I think will be a huge advantage for them. I like Minnesota. I don't know what it is. I have a soft spot for them. They're a team I can see being in a playoff spot. So I'm going to go for this could be the year. So those are my final rankings. I feel like have I been a little generous in the Stanley Cup contenders? But overall I feel like the sections are quite well balanced out, and so these are my predictions for the 2025 to 26 NHL season. So those are my predictions for the upcoming season. Make sure to leave yours in the comments down below because I love hearing different people's predictions and what they think is going to happen in the upcoming season. I'm also getting back into the swing of filming and uploading videos. I miss doing this so much. So if there's anything you'd like me to cover in particular, whether that be about the NHL or hockey across here, also leave me a comment down below with that. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate it, and also like this video if you did enjoy it. Thank you so much for watching, and bring on the NHL season.
Wouldn't lie to you, doesn't matter what I do. She's got a hold on me. She knows how to drive a truck, but she lets me pick her up when we're going dancing. My heart starts beating when my headlights shining on her. She's my country girl.